We almost lost him, Dylan Wang's near-death night shocks fans and medical team. It started like any other hospital night. Quiet halls. Muted footsteps. Monitors humming in gentle rhythms that rarely called for panic. But something shifted around 2:43 a.m. It was subtle at first. A minor change in the heart rate monitor. A flicker in the numbers. Then all at once, everything shattered. A sharp alarm screamed through ICU room 4. The room Dylan Wang had been moved into just days before after a collapse that left the nation holding its breath. And before anyone could process it. Doctors were shouting. Nurses were running. The flatline signal was flashing. The night no one forgot. According to an anonymous staff member who was on duty that night, the medical team was seconds away from declaring a full cardiac arrest. For 90 terrifying seconds, there was nothing. No movement. No response. No confirmation that Dylan was even still with them. He had been stable just hours earlier. There was hope. There were smiles. Even Shen Yu had left his side briefly to get some rest, reassured by doctors that he was strong enough to sleep through the night. But something went wrong. And no one knows exactly what. The emergency response. It took 6 people. 2 defibrillator shocks. And a room full of terrified professionals. To bring Dylan back. He gasped once. Then again. His pulse returned. Shaky. Uneven. But present. The lead physician reportedly said. We were seconds away from losing him. And the entire floor stood still in that truth. Where was Shen Yu? The moment Shen Yu was reached, she reportedly dropped her phone on the hospital corridor floor. She had only stepped out for 1 hour. 1 hour to gather herself. To shower. To breathe. She never made it to her hotel. She never even made it past the hospital gates. Security cameras later showed her sprinting back into the emergency entrance barefoot. She had taken her shoes off in the taxi because her feet were shaking too much. By the time she reached room 4, he was unconscious. Pale. Still connected to oxygen. But alive. Shen Yu collapsed into a chair outside his room. And cried. Not loud. Not publicly. But the kind of cry that happens when your whole world nearly disappears while you are trying to be brave. The moment that shook fans. Word spread fast. By 6 a.m. Hashtags like, we almost lost Dylan. Stay with us Dylan. Shen Yu come back. Were trending across every social media platform in Asia. Thousands stood outside the hospital gates. Holding candles. Some singing softly. Others simply waiting for any word. Any update. No one wanted to go home. Statements silenced. Neither Dylan's team nor Shen Yu made any statement that morning. No pictures. No tweets. No carefully crafted posts to reassure fans. And in that silence, the world held its breath. Because sometimes, the lack of an answer is the loudest sound in the room. The physician speaks. By noon the following day, one of the ICU doctors finally addressed the growing media swarm. Mr. Wang's condition remains critical. There was a significant scare last night. But he is holding on. He responded to emergency efforts. And we remain hopeful. That is all we can say at this time. There were no further questions allowed. No follow-up. Just the undeniable tremble in the doctor's voice. A tremble that confirmed what many feared. They had almost lost him. And it had changed everything. Shen Yu refuses to leave his side. A nurse reported seeing Shen Yu sitting cross-legged beside Dylan's bed later that evening. Reading aloud from a script they had once performed together during their earliest days of acting school. Not rehearsing. Not practicing. Just reading. Softly. So he would hear her voice. She had brought a small speaker. Played the same song they once danced to in secret during a film rap party. She placed it near his hand. And then, she held that hand for 3 hours. Without letting go. A letter that never got sent. Rumors later surfaced that Shen Yu had written a letter to Dylan during his unconscious hours. Something she never intended to show the public. But a nurse reportedly saw her tuck it under his pillow one morning when the room was being cleaned. It read, "You once told me love was easy when the world was quiet. But it's never been quiet for us. And still, I love you. Even now. Even here. Especially here." Fan reactions turn personal. For the first time since their relationship had become public knowledge, the fan base was unified. Not about drama. Not about gossip. But about survival. Art pages were flooded with tributes. Old clips of Dylan laughing with Shen Yu. Fan edits of their performances. And quotes from interviews that now hit differently. One post read, "He said he didn't know how to live without her. Maybe now we understand how serious he was." Another, "They fought. They broke. But they always come back. Because some love stories are just made of more." Behind the hospital walls. Inside the room. Monitors still tracked every beat. Every breath. Doctors checked in every hour. Carefully. But they gave Shen Yu space. They understood now. This wasn't just a celebrity and his girlfriend. This was something else. A nurse was overheard telling a colleague, "It's like he holds on tighter when she talks. I can't explain it. But I see it. Every time." Dylan's first words. It took 48 hours. Then suddenly, he opened his eyes. And he said, "Is she here?" The doctor smiled. And pointed to the chair beside the bed. Shen Yu had fallen asleep with her head resting on the edge of the mattress. Still holding his hand. When she felt the movement, she sat up. Met his eyes. And the only thing either of them said was everything. She whispered, "I'm here." And he cried. What happens next? Doctors have now confirmed that Dylan's recovery will be long. Physically and emotionally. His condition has stabilized. But the cause of the sudden episode remains uncertain. A full battery of tests is underway. And Shen Yu has postponed all projects to remain at his side. No press appearances. No interviews. Just silence. And soft beeps of the monitor that everyone watches more closely than ever. A love that won't leave. They've been through fights. Distance. Public scandals. Emotional wreckage. But what happened that night changed everything. Because Dylan Wang, the man who once told Shen Yu he didn't believe in fate, fought to stay. Because she wasn't in the room when he needed her. And now, she refuses to leave. They don't need to post about it. Or prove it. Because in the quiet of a hospital room, they are doing what few people ever do. Surviving together. He opened his eyes and asked for her, Dylan Wang's first words after ICU shock fans and staff. The moment was quieter than anyone expected. There was no sudden gasp. No wild movement. No cinematic music playing in the background. It happened like most real miracles do. Without warning. Without noise. Just a slow breath. A flicker behind his eyelids. And then, a whisper. Not a medical question. Not confusion. Just one sentence. "Is she here?" The room froze. One nurse dropped her chart. Another covered her mouth in silent awe. He was back. Barely. But undeniably. And the only name on his lips was hers. The return to life. Dylan's body had been through war. His vitals had been stabilized for hours. But the mental and emotional trauma of nearly flatlining was something no doctor could quantify. And yet, his first instinct, his only concern, was whether Shen Yu was near. The attending nurse nodded with glassy eyes, then gently turned her head to the side. There she was, still asleep, her forehead resting against the edge of the mattress, her fingers intertwined with his, her breathing steady. Dylan blinked slowly, as though trying to confirm he wasn't dreaming. Then his hand twitched. Not much. Just enough to tighten slightly around hers. And she stirred. A look that broke everyone. Shen Yu's eyes opened. Groggy at first. Then focused. Then wide with disbelief. She looked up. Straight into his open eyes. He didn't speak again. He didn't have to. She covered her mouth with one hand. The other never letting go of his. Tears spilling faster than she could wipe them. "I'm here." I never left. It was barely a whisper. But it filled the entire room. With something that felt like peace. Or maybe forgiveness. Maybe both. Staff stunned into tears. A young nurse who had been assisting in room 4 later told a colleague. I've worked in hospitals for 9 years. I've seen patients come and go. But I've never seen love like that. The attending physician stood back. Arms crossed over his chest. And muttered under his breath. That's not science. That's something else. It wasn't just Dylan who returned in that moment. It was Shen Yu too. Because for days she had been surviving on hope and guilt and silence. But now, she was breathing again. With him. A photo that changed everything. Security footage from the ICU hallway later captured a quiet moment that would never be released publicly. But according to a hospital administrator, it was one of the most emotional images she had ever seen. Shen Yu stepping out of room 4. Eyes red. Face swollen from crying. Her hand over her chest as though holding her heart in place. Then sinking slowly to the floor against the wall. Her manager tried to reach for her. But she shook her head. He's awake. He looked at me. He asked for me. And then, she smiled. The kind of smile that only comes when someone you thought was lost finds you again. The media explosion. By morning, the news had already spread. An anonymous hospital source leaked the miracle moment. And headlines around the world exploded. He opened his eyes and asked for her. Dylan lives. Shen Yu stayed. The only word he said was she. Fans erupted. Messages flooded the comment sections of both stars' inactive profiles. Art pages were revived. Hashtags returned. And for the first time in weeks, the mood shifted from grief to cautious joy. Silence still speaks. Neither Dylan nor Shen Yu posted anything publicly. No selfies. No thank you messages. No hospital photos. But the silence wasn't painful anymore. It was protective. Like a sacred space they refused to open to the world. This time, it was theirs. And only theirs. Visitors turned away. Multiple celebrities reportedly tried to visit the hospital. Some friends. Some former co-stars. Even producers with flower arrangements and scripts in hand. But Shen Yu politely declined them all. He just woke up. We need time. And no one argued. Because when someone nearly dies, you let the people who love them set the rules. Dylan's second day awake. He was still weak. Still not talking much. Still connected to machines that beeped too often and too loud. But he kept his eyes on her. Every time Shen Yu stood to stretch or grab water, his gaze followed her like gravity itself depended on her return. She didn't say much either. But her presence did more than words ever could. She sat. Read him old texts. Played him voicemail messages he once left her during their worst fight. And told him every little thing he missed. And he listened. Eyes wide. Hand gripping hers. Like he didn't want to risk drifting again. The conversation nobody heard. One night. 3 days after he woke up. Nurses cleared the room early. Monitors were muted. Lights dimmed. And for the first time since the fall, Shen Yu and Dylan were alone. She sat closer this time. Their fingers locked tighter.